I think this is, as what the Sadri moderator has said, this is actually a very important budget. And the three issues that I really want to cover today have to do with, I think, long-term challenges that the country faces, whereby the solutions actually it's not going to be easy. You know, I think in politics we always want to deliver easy and quick answers, but sometimes that's often not the case. But at the same time, I do want to give some note of optimism to say that it is possible. We've seen it happen even in our own country, in some of the states which Pakatan has ruled since 2008, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. And also by learning from examples which other countries have set for us as well. So without much further ado, I'd like to go on to highlight the three main issues. Hope this works. Okay. Yeah, I think the three main issues for me are the ones outlined here. This is sort of like a rip-off from the new economic model, which some of you may have read, whereby they have three sort of like areas in which they cover in terms of increasing incomes, making this economic model inclusive as well as sustainable. Mine is a little bit different, but there are some similarities there, which is to uplift the poor, and then to talk about competitiveness in this country, the state we've sort of like descended to, and what we need to do to get us out of this situation. And then the final issue is the issue of sustainability. How do we try to manage this process in a way that is beneficial for the most number of people in the longer run? Before I go on, I'd like to welcome Dr. Zul, member of our Parliament for Selangor. I'd like to exercise, so my legs are always very gata before to stand. Okay, hope you forgive me for standing. Okay, so let's talk about the first challenge, which is the upliftment of the poor. And I think these are some statistics which some of you may be familiar with, especially from those who are from PSM. Even though the BN government boasts that we have accomplished a lot economically, I think there's still a lot to be desired in terms of trying to uplift the poor. We see stats such as that which we found in the 2009 household income survey report, where actually 70% of households still earn less than 3,500 per month, right? And we know that this doesn't really get us very far, especially in the urban areas like in the Klang Valley. The median household income, because this is actually the median household income for the entire country in 2009 was less than 3,000 actually, 2,841. And this is for one entire household. If we look at the per capita household income, the median is only 777. That means the average person in the average household earns only, or in the median household rather, earns only 777 ringgit. And then the mean is a bit higher at 1,168. The reason why the mean is higher than the median, for those of you who are economists, is because of inequality. And Malaysia has one of the highest Gini coefficients in the world. It's at 0.441 in 2009. 1 being the most unequal, that means one person basically owns the entire wealth of the country. 0 being totally equal, that means everyone is earns and has the same amount of wealth. We are worse than India and Indonesia, which is at around 0.368. Right? You may say that India and Indonesia, we don't want to be in that state because they are poorer than us. Even countries that are richer than us, like Japan and Korea, their income inequality is actually lower at 0.376 and 0.314 respectively. Right? So not only do we have relatively low household incomes and even lower household per capita incomes, we also have great inequality. And the inequality has not decreased significantly since we achieved independence in 1957. It has not gone below 0.440, for example, from a Gini perspective. And what is even more worrying is that the bottom 40%, this is household income, not even per capita yet. Mean household income is 1,529 only. and the median is 1,524, right? So this is actually very worrying because a lot of these households, especially if let's say this is a dual income household, you're just basically one firing away from your family going into poverty, right? If you divide that by 2, it's below the poverty line of 800 ringgit in Peninsular Malaysia. In Sabah it's higher, in Sarawak it's higher. And even though our poverty rate has been reduced to about 3.8% in Peninsular Malaysia, we still have pockets of significant poverty. In Sabah, for example, in the latest statistics, it's almost 20% in overall, and in the rural areas it's much higher at 32.5%. Right? So from a perspective of uplifting the poor, this is something where I think a lot of us who are in the middle class don't really see, especially in the urban areas. But I think parties such as PSM and other NGOs who have worked with the poor, who have worked with the urban poor, knows that this is actually a very, very serious problem. Second issue is the issue of competitiveness. If we look at various indicators, Malaysia doesn't rank too badly. We are somewhere in between. We're always not the worst, but not the best either. But what is worrying is that we've seen these various indicators of competitiveness decrease over the years. Right? So for example, the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Ranking, Pemandu made a big fuss when from 2010 to 2011 we increased from 26 to 21. But in the latest rankings that came out actually last month, we dropped from 21 to 25, despite the many ETP, Economic Transformation Program, and Government Transformation programs where they spent millions, if not billions of ringgit. Right? It's easy for the Pemandu consultants to talk about things like subsidy rationalization when a director there earns 40,000 ringgit a month. This is a month, I'm not talking about a year. Okay? It's easy for them to talk about getting rid of the subsidies when they are in positions of relative influence, right? But this is a different ballgame we're talking about here. We also have a fall in Transparency International Global Corruption Index from 56 in 2010 to 60 in 2011. And this actually has massive repercussions on the country, not just at the top, in terms of not being able to draw foreign direct investment in this country, but also at the bottom, where there are a lot of leakages and the money that's supposed to go to the poor do not end up reaching the poor. And it also manifests itself in very bad government policies. The other things that I want to highlight in regards to competitiveness is this PISA ranking, which is an international assessment done by OECD on student ranking and scores in reading, math, and as well as science. And in 2009, Malaysia participated in these rankings for the first time. We ranked 55 in reading, 57 in math, science 52, and this is out of 74 countries. So we ranked in the bottom third of countries, and this was highlighted in the recent release of the National Education Blueprint. If you compare Singapore's ranking, Singapore ranked 5, 2, and 4 respectively. So you can see the big difference. And no Malaysian university ranks among the top 100 universities in the world. Right? So these are examples of how, from various indicators of competitiveness, our country has really taken a stumble. And then the last issue is actually sustainability. Right? We talked about, the budget is coming up, so debt sustainability is one issue that we really need to understand. And one highlight that I want to throw out here is actually the government debt has increased from 267 billion in 2007 to 456 billion in 2011. It currently stands at 477 billion as of Q2 2012, and we expect it to increase further next year. The government debt to GDP ratio is about 53% now, and if it reaches the 55% limit, the government has to make a proposal in Parliament to increase the debt ceiling. Okay, and this is actually just the tip of the iceberg, because there are also many mega projects in the pipeline which are funded by this thing called contingent liabilities. The thing about contingent liabilities is that they do not appear anywhere in the budget statement. These are debts, for example, that are incurred by government-linked corporations or by MOF incorporated agencies such as Prasarana, that runs and owns LRT and rapid buses, and then the recently created MRT Co. Right? And as well as agencies such as 1MDB. So all of 1MDB's debts does not occur as part of, is not seen as part of government deficit, but it appears as government, as contingent liabilities, which means if any of these companies go bust or has problem paying these debts, the government would have to assume these debts and start paying them off, right? So examples, recent examples would include how the government stepped in to pay off PKA's debt obligations to the various special purpose vehicles that were established by Kuala Denensi Berhad that amounted up to 4 billion ringgit. Because these were sort of like contracts that KDSB said that the Port Klang Authority would pay, and that was sort of like underwritten by a government guarantee, and that those guarantee letters were signed by none other than Tun Ling and later Tan Sri Chan Kong Choi, both of whom are under investigation now because of misleading the government. And today I just read in the papers that Tun Ling apparently seems to have forgotten all the details. He doesn't even know what AAA rating means, apparently, despite being a Minister of Transportation for all those years. The other thing that I found out, I talked about the World Economic Forum rankings. The other thing that has come out recently is the sort of like parallel to the WEF rankings, which is the Global Sustainable Index. And here, it lists various criteria on how sustainable government policies are in different countries. So, for example, when I looked at the data that showed forest cover loss over the past 10 years based on satellite data, Malaysia actually ranks 77 out of 79. Right? So this you can attribute it to one of the sort of like most aggressive palm oil planting sort of like initiatives in the country over the past 10 years. You can see Sabah, Sarawak, Pahang, large swathes of land are just basically taken over by palm oil plantations. Right? In terms of population weighted, this is sort of like a pollution index. We rank 64 out of 75. So from these three issues, uplifting the poor, competitiveness, and sustainability, they are actually very, very serious concerns which has to be addressed not just by the budget, but also by larger government policies. I'm just going to go through quickly three of them, since there are other speakers who want to talk about other things as well. Today, the Pakatan Rakyat Alternative Budget was announced in Parliament today by the leader of the Parliament, the leader of the opposition in Parliament rather, Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim. And I think there are a lot of things inside there which are quite exciting for me to see from these three perspectives: uplifting the poor, competitiveness, as well as sustainability. You can go and download it from the various websites, Pakatan Party websites that have uploaded it. I'll just cover three areas which I'm particularly excited about. Okay, the first thing is actually public housing. Right? So the current problem with public housing in Malaysia, I think it's a really, really deep-seated problem. And I'm talking about public affordable housing. How many of you have driven past the tunnel that links the LDP to Ara Damansara? Do you remember? Right? So on your left-hand side, what do you see? Do you remember? The PPRT project is called Lembah Subang. Right? And do you know how many people are living there now? Do you know? Do you know, Icha, how many people are living there? 0. Because that place was, that housing project was built on top of a former landfill, and they have methane gas leaking from the ground, so the ground is quite unstable. And they have actually built at least 10 apartment units there, capable of housing about, I would say, probably 400 people per apartment unit, per block. You're talking about 4,000 units there, just like that. Right? Money wasted, people can't move in, the place is going to go into disrepair, and all that, and that is actually in a very prime location. If you had managed to build a good public housing and affordable housing of the LDP, these people would have access to public transportation. These low-income groups would be able to have access to jobs in the industrial areas and also in the shopping areas nearby. Right? So this is actually just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what is wrong with our public housing policy. And it's not going to be easy to solve. Pakatan is promising that we will build 100,000 houses between 130 to 300K in the first term. These would be affordable from a Klang Valley perspective. It may not be affordable to those in the really lower income brackets, but Pakatan has also introduced some policies in the alternative budget to address those concerns. right? So 5 billion for a national housing board, and every year after that to inject 2 billion from year 2 to 5, right? So Pakatan is committing a lot of resources to this. And what is important is that actually we are trying to find creative ways of public housing policy, including new ownership models to have part ownership. That means the state will own part of your apartment, and then you will own the other part, so that the amount of money you need to come up with to pay for the deposit and also to pay for the subsequent mortgage payments will actually be lower, right? And if let's say you do move up the economic ladder, if let's say the overall government policies are so such that your income goes up, you can spend more of your money to buy back the share from the government, right? So it's actually much better compared to now. If you buy 300,000 ringgit apartment, for example, you need to pay mortgage payments to pay back all of that, right? Rather than, let's say you buy only 50% of that, then you lease the rest from the government, and then you need to pay mortgage payments for half the amount, right? So these are some of the creative models we are trying to introduce. Urban rejuvenation to sort of like increase the quality as well as quantity of urban housing. One thing that Pakatan is trying to do is to try to introduce policies whereby public affordable housing is built in urban areas, in urban centers, rather than to build them very, very far away, where people don't even have public transport, which means they can't get to good jobs, or if they have to buy a car, it means that they are very much in debt because of high servicing costs and also petrol costs. Right, and then lastly, restructure affordable housing government corporations. We have various government corporations and GLCs at the federal and state levels right now, and they are not very coordinated in terms of policies. So this is something that Pakatan will look at as well. And public housing is actually important both from a competitiveness perspective as well as from uplifting the poor perspective. Because if you have good public housing, it means that one of the basic needs of the poor community is solved. And if you place them in places where it's relatively close to places where they can find jobs, it means lower cost of transportation as well as easier access to these good quality jobs. Okay, the second thing that I want to talk about is actually public transportation, and I think this is tied in very much with public housing, right? And sort of like accessibility to good jobs by the poor. Because right now, for many of the low-cost housing estates that are built, on the outskirts, you actually have a lot of problems in terms of finding transportation to your jobs, right? And then what we are trying to do now, what we're trying to do now is to actually have a national transport policy that actually moves people rather than just focusing on MRT alone, for example. We want to devolve public transport plans and networks to regional and state as well as local authorities. So for example, if let's say MBPJ wants to set up a local bus system, right now you can't do it because the federal government says that, look, the licenses can only be issued by us and we're not going to let you do it. What we are trying to say is we follow examples from other countries where if you are a local authority, you should be allowed to run your own bus system, right? This is something that prevents, for example, me from PJ getting from SS2 to Jalan Gasing because there's no local buses that will apply that route. They used to be under the minibus system, but now it's no longer in existence, right? Okay, the last part is actually abolishing monopolies to increase competition. And I think this is very important because there are a lot of monopolies in this country which jack up costs and also prevent us from getting competitive prices and also having good entrepreneurs to be able to improve products and services in this country. So Pakatan will actually introduce an antitrust law to complement the rather weak competition law and also to establish an Unfair Public Contracts Act. So we can abolish or restructure many of the cartels and monopolies which exist. For example, the telcos are not covered under the Competition Act. This is something that we will address. And then lastly, consider management buyouts for non-strategic GLCs so that we take away the management of these companies away from the government and then we give it to entrepreneurs whom we think can run it responsibly and for the benefit of the community also than for the cronies that currently occupy many of these positions. So there's still a lot of concerns because there are capacity issues at the federal, state and local level, even if let's say Pakatan takes over. There are a lot of contingent liabilities that Pakatan may have to bond if let's say we do come into power after the next general election and we hope that will happen. And then there will be a lot of legal challenges to the dismantling of certain monopolies and contracts. But you should have optimism because Selangor and Penang have shown that PR can govern prudently, increase in reserves in all these states, in both these states, At the same time, it's larger welfare handouts that go directly to the people with sustainable policies that uplift the poor in the longer run and increase competitiveness in both these states. So I think I want to stop there. Thanks.
MalaysiaKini.com.
Malaysia Kini.
For the Malaysia Kini.